left the room.
Okay.
So.
I'm here.
Are you here?
So you started the recording. Very good.
Yeah.
So yes, we will be recording this session, and maybe we can start. That's why we're recording the session, so that latecomers can tune in later. So my name is Hans Grimsky. I work for Entity Data Business Solutions. I'm the head of the global digital supply chain practice. Thank you. And I'm very, very happy to be here today with you. And many thanks to Nortura and to Annette and Henrik, of course, who will be presenting the project. I was very fortunate to be able to come to Nortura for the go live. And I must say, it's the most beautiful warehouse I've ever seen. It's in the fjords in Norway. And the sunrise from the cold storage warehouse with a great view on the fjord is, it's really the best looking warehouse I've ever seen. So it's a great pleasure to be with you and to see how this project has grown since the go live. That was a couple of years ago now. So yes, over to you. Maybe Henrik, you can share your screen, or Annette.
Yes, I will share the screen and with the presentation. Just let's do that. So you can. Do you see your own faces now?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And now the presentation, right?
Yes, we can see the presentation. Yeah.
Okay, let's start. I will make it in presentation mode. Like this. Yes, as Hans mentioned, we will now make a presentation on the Nortura Nova project, especially on the EWM part of it. And to do that, we have Annette Eliassen, who is a process owner for the expedition area at Nortura, and myself, Henrik Arve. I was a solution architect from Entity Data on that part of the project during nearly all the years where this Nova project have been running at Nortura. Now I cannot, since I share, I'm not able to see the team, so I hope somebody will open the door for people in the lobby to come in. I can hear the voice that
Yes,
people.
Yes, we will do this. And also, if you have questions and you don't really want to interrupt the presentation, just ask them in the chat, and we'll summarize them with Andrea and ask them later on in the presentation.
That was a short introduction. I don't know, Annette, if you have anything already here that you want to add to that introduction.
No, I think you're doing good as always.
Thank you. But we will, first of all, Annette will give you an overview of the Nortura, the business, what different business models they have, and what markets we have, a little bit numbers. Then I will make a general introduction to the Nova program, the project, and also try to put in the expedition area or the EWM project in that very big project. And then we will come into some of the background for the project from Nortura point of view, the scope, the solution, and the timeline. And then we will at the end sum up with some of the benefits that was realized during this project. And then I will hand over to Annette, who will make this overview or this introduction to the Nortura company. Annette?
Yes, thank you, Henrik. Well, as Henrik said, my name is Annette Eliasson, and I am the process owner for the expedition process in Nortura. And I have been on this journey with Henrik and Entity Data almost in the start of the project. I thought first I would say a little bit about Nortura and who we are, for those of you who doesn't know us. One thing is that we have lovely factories along the fjords, but we also have factories all over the country. Nortura is basically a cooperative consisting of over 17,700 farmers across the country. We have over 30 production sites from Karasjok in the north and to Egersund in the south, and a bit above 4,900 employees all around Norway. And in addition to that, we have several wholly and partially owned subsidiaries within related businesses activities in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and England. Wool, skins, and hides is some of them. We offer a multitude of raw and semi-finished materials and finished products of meat, poultry, and eggs, both for the end customer market and the industrial and large kitchen market. In our terms, the large kitchen market is called a proof market. Our biggest brands are Gilde and Prior, Prior being poultry and eggs, and Gilde being the rest. Nortura is also a market regulator for meats and eggs in Norway, and this is an important social role, and it ensures that our owners, the Nortura farmer, have predictability and stability, both financially and in their day-to-day work. And knowing that we take pride in making sure that their produce is used in the best way possible. As a market regulator, Nortura has a receive and a supply duty, starting with livestock reception and ending with expedition of finished and semi-finished produce. And our core value, as I said, is making the best out of everything the farmer produces, from your breakfast egg to the Sunday roast dinner and so on. Can you next, please?
Yes.
I just need my notes, sorry. Prior to this project, Nortura had more than 70 legally applications to support an ever-changing business model. This portfolio represented significant technology inheritance from long times ago, mergers, and over many years. The IT portfolio also consists of systems that in today's market are difficult to maintain, and some even don't have any supply have any support. We had reached a point where we need to make some actions and renew ourselves. And within the NOVA program, Nortura has worked very hard to simplify, renew, and improve all steps throughout the value chain. Large parts of Nortura have already established new governance modes on the best practice and now supported by SAP. Old technological heritage has been replaced by standardized ERP platforms, the platform that enable us to differentiate ourselves and not least enable the digital transformation for Nortura that we so desperately needed. We now think equally across the company, whether it's purchasing, warehousing, manufacturing, sales, or distribution. And this gives us a much better basis for managing suppliers, transport, utilization of our inventory, our processing, our production capacity, and so on. Perhaps also equally important, it allows us to plan, implement, and most of all, measure everything we do on the same basis. Just in my area, the expedition, we see the value of a common platform of SAP and EWM and the end user equipment that in our case is Nifted. So it's a good start.
Yes, then I will.
Back to you.
Yes, I will take over for a few slides, telling a little bit about the program or the project. So in the beginning of the project, we of course started to look at all these variety of different systems that Nette just told that was in Nortura, and we have to make a plan on which system should be decommissioned, which one could be supported by SAP solutions, and which external system should we still have an interface. So we established this main cards over all the main process areas. And down, let's see if I can point, just a second, I can have, wait. I can make it the arrow. Can you see my mouse here? Or should I make it a light?
Yes, we can see the mouse.
Okay. So down here we have the main areas within SAP. And we were covering with everything from sales and operation planning on a strategic level and a tactical level down to day-to-day MRP operations or planning. We were covering procurement, everything about the logistic chain, stock, transportation management, quality management, HR, ESS, PLM, product folio. So it's abroad. And then, of course, we had finance and treasury overall. And then we also had an industry solution provided by software providing that covered everything nearly that was very specific for this business. And it was the one mentioned up here, which is member accounts. So this is the way that we are dealing with the farmers and how we are settled all the purchase we did for livestock and all the rules for settlement accounts, the members or the farmers. It was slaughter planning, it was intake, it was reverse billing, it was all the manufacturing part, also the data capturing from the manufacturing part of it. And the industry solution was primarily concentrated in production for the slaughter process and the cutting process, while the further processing is more like a normal production with a normal bill of material. If you talk about the stock and the transportation, the area we were having the responsibility for in the expedition team, we had also to look at these approximately, I think it was approximately 50 plants, some 30 plants which are directly Nortura, and then 20 plants that are daughter companies that should be implemented in the solution. And we have to look at what is the requirements, what are the processes, what are the customer segments they are handling from that specific plant. So we have to make an overview of all these different scenarios. Then we also said that as a rule in the project that we will have to define some processes that are where we could where it will be best to implement the best practice from SAP, because they are not differentiating, they were not special for Nortura. Then we had some processes that we said that this is differentiating systems or processes, because these processes were the main process, the core critical processes that are supporting the business of Nortura. And then we have something we call transaction systems, which are, of course, in the stock area, where we have a lot of transactions and the big volume that should be entered. So in these systems, we should make sure that the efficiency was supported, even though that we have to differentiate a little bit for best practice. I think this was what I will say. So after we have identified all the processes and we have looked in the card of all the plants, look into what kind of trying to group the plants in different categories. When we found out that I think it was about 12 plants had a volume, complexity, and a structure, and were dealing with processes against different market and customer segments. So we needed some more detailed warehouse control system. So we decided to put EWM in the scope for those 12 plants originally, and then the remaining plants, they didn't have this same requirement, so they were planned to be supported by SAP IM processes. And the reason, because the reason why SAP EWM was chosen to support these 12 plants in the beginning is it's a best of breed product. It has a well-proven track record since 2006 with a lot of improvements coming in during the roadmap. At the time we were looking at the solution, it was about the time when EWM 9.4 was the current platform. And since this project was started before maybe S/4HANA implementation was not an option. It was for sure it was not anyway, it was not decided. So we hadn't a chance at that time to look at an embedded solution. So we had to go for a decentralized solution, and we started on 9.4. And this means that we have a decentralized, we have the ECC ERP platform, and we are using the native interface to the EWM part. But also we could see already at that time, of course, that when in the future Nortura will be on S4, we could revisit some of the plans or some of the current installations to see if it will be better to have them implemented as embedded EWM solutions. And also, I think the roadmap for Nortura that they can look into is they're giving some options now to make what we call innovation, the innovation path. They could look at to innovate the EWM part first. So because the current solution that are implemented nowadays in a decentralized EWM is a S4HANA based solution. So you could innovate or upgrade the current EWM solutions we have at Nortura to S4HANA first, and then keep on using the current ECC system. And then later on, you could migrate to S4HANA on the ERP side, or you could do it the opposite way, because now SAP provides the options to have an ECC connected to EWM, or you could have a S4HANA connected to EWM, or you can have a ECC connected to S4HANA EWM. So it's a lot of options now to make a plan for your roadmap towards S4HANA solutions. Also, we found that we, of course, in a big project like this, we really wanted to scope in so that we would have, of course, everything necessary implemented to support the business now and in the future. But also we wanted to give Nortura a platform where the digitalization and automation in the future were supported of the solution that they were implementing. And I think this is the case for EWM, where they have a very good platform now for the future travel towards more digitalization and automation on the plants. If I should say a little bit of our approach in the project, of course, in the project we are trying always to cope with all different elements for the customer. We are looking at the value propositions. We were considering end-to-end processes. We are looking on the supply chain, but also expected changes to the supply chain. We wanted to build that into the solution. One thing that is happening in Norway already during the project for Nortura was that we had a shift from a lot of cross-dock processes. And cross-dock in this context is a little bit different than if you're thinking cross-dock within EWM. But cross-dock means that we will pick and pack goods for each end shop, and then we will send these packed pallets to the customer's distribution center, and they will then cross-dock it directly to the shops. That was one business model, and there was a lot of this business before, but now the big chains, retail chains, are shifting over to what in Norwegian is called fremskudt lager. So we are, instead of packing for the end shops, we are making replenishment to the retail's distribution centers, and then they will pick and pack themselves for the shops. And also in the model, for a planning purpose, Nortura will have some insights. They will have data from the customers, and Nortura will also have a responsible to plan what should the customers have in stock. We are calling that fremskudt lager, and the processes and the development is going more in that directions. But we had to establish both concepts and are alive, but we are also ready to make the change in the supply chain that was expected. Then we'd also like to look at the automatization possibilities. So in some of the plants were quite automated, but for a scope point of view, we decided to keep that existing automatization and then implement EWM, and then using this automated part of the warehouse as a warehouse control unit with an interface to EWM. So EWM was still the main warehouse management system, using the automated part as a warehouse control unit. We looked a lot on the change management as well, because now it's many plants, and they had, as Annette said, there's many different systems before, and many plants have have managed before to get their own small local solutions in the system. So now Nortura want to have like a common solution, common process as much as possible. And also we wanted to work a lot with the user UX interface. So we want to give the people working with the system a good feeling of the UX. And in the project for Nortura on a strategic basic decided to have Neptune as a strategic platform for UX. So we implemented Neptune solutions connected to EWM, and Nette will show a little bit more of some of the solutions later. And then we looked at all the business process. I want to mention one process here that caused a lot of effort because this was not a big bang go live. So we went live with one factory, and in some of the waves it was 2 or 3 factories, but still there will be a lot of plants alive still on the old Acceptor platform. And since Nortura have a lot of internal movements where they are transporting product from one plant to another for further processing, we need to have a model where we could manage both to have SAP companies and Acceptor companies in the same solution. So we made the solution what we call interim, where we had to deal with a lot of things, and how are SAP handling this kind of things, catch rates, for example, and how is Acceptor handling catch rates. But I think we ended up to have a quite stable solution, but it was also quite complex. And then, of course, we looked a lot of the master data, generally in the solution in SAP, but also specific for EWM. And I think Annette will also mention a little bit that master data is also quite important, and it also was something that Nortura had to improve on the quality. Then our approach, this picture was quite to say that we want to have a full view of a project. We will have all the business driven, the value proposition. We will look at the technical part, the business processes, the master data, the change management. Everything was kind of covered in our project. For the approach, then we started up like to visit all the plants, try to gather the generic requirements, and started up to build the solution. And then it was decided in the project that the Malvik plant that Hans mentioned, which is located in Trondheim, was decided to be the pilot plant. So then we shifted over to make a specific solution for Malvik. And then we went live up there in the end of 2018. And we had some very useful experience. The solution had to be improved in some areas, not only the EWM, but the general solution for all parts. The interim that I mentioned before needed to be improved. So we had a little bit more support for this plant to go live to help them. And then also, I think in the project, we realized that the effort for the change management and the preparation of the plants was really, really important. So that was also kind of more structured after that. And then we went live with the next plant, which is in Hasbad, which is only dealing with the cross-dock, primarily with cross-dock process. And then this project already went much better. The preparation of the plant, the readiness of the people working there, the solution was improved also since the first go live. And then at this time, the 12 plants that we decided to have EWM scope originally, we found out that there were actually more plants of the smaller plants that also wanted EWM. So we actually established a new template at this point called simplified EWM solution, where we cut a lot of the functionality in the main template away. So it was a very defined, simple concept that could be established within very few days. And I think maybe it's 6 or 7 plants that have this simplified solution now. And then we started to roll out for all the other plants. And then we had a very fixed and very robust framework now for making a fit gap analysis for each plant, having some gaps approved maybe to build the plant, test it. And then parallel to that, the plants were prepared in the change management and organization change management track. and we are using the experience from other plants, taking people from other plants up to the new plants, preparing these, telling them what they should focus on, and preparing them, generally for the implementation. So I think the rollout was doing very well, and we are doing a lot of rollouts also during the Corona, meaning that we couldn't be as many people on site as planned, or as we probably originally would have planned. So I think we have a very robust rollout, and now, we should have been finished, but I think Annette can tell that there is maybe another one coming up now for Simplified. So maybe they are missing one of the daughter companies. And then, of course, already now, but also in the future, it will be continuous improvements on the solution, more automation, more digitalization, and so forth. Then I think I will give the word back to Annette again.
Thank you. So, project challenges. Well, it has had some challenges, as Henrik has just commented. And it didn't take long before we realized that what we meant by master data was not the same as SAP, and at least not EWM meant by master data. We suddenly got terms like catch weight, HUTU, we have this interim period, SCM, OCM, WCU. There were a lot of new words and concepts, even more new rules, and everything was connected and should end up in best practice and make sense. So where do we start? Well, the answer from entity data and Henrik was in one end, start in the beginning. So that's what we did. We started on one end, well prepared with an SAP dictionary and a clear idea of how this should be. And man, what a ride that was. I must admit, we painted ourselves into a corner a couple of times along the way, because how does this catch weight and batch control really work? These parts that were so important to us, but that we didn't have any system support for earlier. And then there was this long interim period that was ahead of us at the time. I'm happy to say, as Henrik said, we are almost finished. We have just one more plant to go live with. But how will we get all these parts to talk together without one rule knocking out another? How should we manage to set the different scenarios and meet the different customer requirements that we have? Batch management with wholesaler date, retailer date, last consumption date, and best before date. Deliver with or without an SACC3, but always an SACC4. We had direct and cross-dock orders, STOs, wholesaler orders. Well, the goal was to get a common process and templates in EWM, as Henrik said. Processes and templates that would meet their different needs and requirements, covering inbound processes from both external customers and internally in Nortura, and with and without the interim solution. The various internal processes, such as production supplies and warehouse holds. We have factories that have interfaces between EWM and external system that also had to be safeguarded. And then at least we have an outbound process that is challenging and varied, and with many different picking and packing variants, different date requirements and deadlines. You think an expedition is an expedition, but it's not. They have different physics. Some have 2 buildings, others have 3, maybe 5 floors. Some have only industrial customers and SDO flow. Others have only cross-dock. But one thing they all had in common, and is that, like Henrik said, no one solves a challenge the same way. And here we were trying to get everyone and everything under one umbrella. A common end user platform should also be developed with Neptune front end, covering all the processes. And here I must commend entity data for their patience and their ability to ask why such and why not so. They have picked up and brought challenges along the way that it took us a long time to discover that even was a challenge. And that made us come up with a good, robust, and a sensible solution. So it's a good journey. Now, let us look at our processes. These are an overview over the different processes we have. We have an inbound process, an outbound process, and an internal process. We use Neptune to do the GR, goods receipt, both for the ERP and the EWM factories. And as I said, we receive goods from external vendors, from production, and other Nortura plants. Outbound processes, here we have several variants depending on our customers. Some customers and goods go through what we call a cross-dock, as Henrik mentioned, different type of cross-dock than you probably would think it is, where we pick the goods for end-to-end customers that we assemble ready for the wholesaler. And we have our wholesaler flow and our SDO flows between the different Nortura factories. For the internal processes we have inventory and stock counting, replenishment, goods movement, HU movements, and so on. Looking on the goods receipt, the inbound process. It was important for us, as I said a couple of times now, to have a common solution from the start, whether it was ERP or EWM, from external, internal, or throughout the interim period. And since we implemented HU management in our SAP plants, reception between SAP plants was significantly simplified. But we also had to have a solution for the goods received from Accepta or external customers that do not have an HU management. Simply speaking, we made an HU on the inbound delivery. The fact that we had to have this extended interim period meant that we had to set some guidelines for those factories and facilities that wasn't in SAP yet. And this triggered an internal campaign. As you can see the picture down in the corner here, this is one of our factory managers reminding us that when we picked and packed to an SAP plant, it needs to be spot on at every level. And it worked. It was a good campaign. Looking on the outbound process, this considers of several steps. This is the picking process in itself. Again, Neptune PDI. Everything is Neptune front end, and that is has been a good choice, I think. We group orders into transportation units that we send down to EWM to be processed. We waiver transport units to trigger the warehouse tasks for the day, the shift, the departure time, whatever is useful for the plant today. We have a picking process that leads directly to assembly, which include a whole pallet picking as one factor, and something that we call a pre-picking, and that is the flow for our catch weight materials that needs to be expedited over a weight station before put to assembly in the staging area. Looking at the weight station, as you can see here, again, Neptune front end. And a weight station is a very important tool for us because we move a lot of catch weight goods. And if there is any app we have spent a lot of time on, and it is this one. It should be user-friendly, informative, and like here, I don't know if you can see this so good, but it's a picture of the produce, meaning that when somebody new comes into a warehouse, he can easily identify what he's doing. It should have enough and the right information, like customer, material, quantity, and batch, but it shouldn't be too much either. A weight station is usually connected to a weight instrument and a number of printers, depending on the process. And in this process, we catch the weight, we weigh the product and label it, put it in a destination HU, print an SSCC3, that is in our world an address label, and we put the HUs onto assembly. This normal flow is what we call the pre-picking flow. We also have other modes in our weight station. One is for volume goods, that is high frequently items, and a group-based variant, which is used where that is most practical. Flexibility was just as important here as accuracy, so we have worked a great deal to be able to land a weight station with so many different functions in one. This is then our assembly and loading. When the goods is assembled, that is when we bring the different SACC3s onto an SACC4 for a customer. This is the cross-dock flow. It then is the SACC4 is technically put into a staging area, and when it's time to send the goods, we use an app for the loading process. The loading process is where we scan all our SACC4 to get out freight documents, other documents, and we trigger a goods issue and send the RSN or EDI to the receptionist. So this is our last step on the outgoing process. And then we have our internal processes. That's basically an internal move HU and an internal move of goods. We have stock counting, both planned counting and unplanned counting, and replenishment tasks. Here too, everything is Neptune PDI. We have one PDI for everything we ever do. And that's a good thing. So, as Henrik mentioned, here are our factories. It was supposed to be 12, I think. We are now up to 14. These are just our EWM factories. We have a lot of EM factories too. As said, there will be 14 in total. We have gone live with 13 factories as of now. So we have just one more remaining, and that will be just over the summer. The pilot was Malvik, the plant in Trondheim with the lovely fjords. And it is a factory which has every step of the process. It's slaughter, cutting, production, and an expedition. And that expedition has all the processes and all the customer groups: wholesalers, retailer, cross-dock, and industrial customers, and the stock order flow. So they had it all in that case, and in that sense, it was a grand opening. After that, as Henrik said, came Harstad, also in the north. And Harstad, like Bergen, has EWM expedition, but no production. And they have just direct or cross-dock customers. After that came Målselv, our first simplified. As Henrik said, it's still an EWM expedition, but it scaled down a bit. And February this year was the last Nortura plant that went live with EWM. And after that, we have one of our daughters that had a Simplify solution, and that was the 1st of May. So it's been a long journey, and in this sense, we're now seeing the end of it. Any questions for now? No? Good. So, now we have talked about challenges, and we have talked about solutions. But, excuse me.
Sorry, I do have a question. I see that you spent 3 years to implement 14 warehouses. I can imagine the first pilots were taking more time, and then you went to the simplified solution. So how many months did you work on a simplified solution rollout?
First of all, I will say that it's correct what you mentioned about time, but in between all this, there was a lot of other plans without EWM, so we had to follow the general rollout approach for the general implementation plan. But I think for the simplified, I think you can, the approach we had for simplified, that we didn't even make a fit gap really, because it was to take the template or not. Anita, maybe you can say maybe some of them had a little bit of changes. I'm not sure, but we had the template. So to implement the simplified, it was only a matter of few weeks if you cut down to what is necessary, because we don't require special master data, because we also cut away for example, the strategy on the products, because all the products will have the same strategies in those plants. So a few weeks, it could be possible to implement simplified.
Yeah, we had that issue with one of our daughters. We thought it was going to be an EM expedition. We came there and we saw the warehouse and said this needs to be a simplified, and it was no issue. It just came to place. We pushed a button and it was go.
Yeah, so the simplified is really, it's a solution. You don't do a gap analysis. It's really like a setup that will work in the smaller warehouses. And if there is, it's more they adjusting to the tool than the other way around if needed.
Yes.
Yep.
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, like I said, we have talked a bit about challenges and we have talked about solution, and the advantages are many, and we have a better overview over inventories. We have improved flow of goods and we deliver better than before. EWM really raised the quality of what we deliver and when we deliver it. But I thought I'd say a little bit about this journey we had and what it's like to be in such a big project. Because we entered this project with the industrial experience we had and many years of seniority. After all, we were selected because we knew what we were doing at the time. So, coffee in hand, bright and early, ready as ever, we showed up for an overall review of the solution. And at the end of the process, there was a box labeled 8000 Expedition EWM with a footnote that said, separate rules are set in EWM. We were like, all right, nice, we can do with this. So the project was on. We met Henrik and the rest of the team from Entity Data, and it doesn't take too long before we understand the magnitude of this project, because this was a big job. We came in with a folder that contained goods, customer, dates and routes, batches, and a lot of manual solution that we wanted to put into a system. The answer came in Danish, that we really don't understand that good, and included words and phrases such as delivery split and transportation units, warehouse order creation rules, and put away strategies. Man, our interim period had begun, the period where Entity and us needed to talk together and understand each other. We took notes, asked questions, took more notes, and asked the same question in so many ways, and every time, very patiently, Henrik answered all of our questions. It all fell into place in the end, after explanation both in Norwegian, Danish, some English, and a lot of use of a whiteboard. At some point in our journey, Henrik said that we did not project right. Our team room was too clean and tidy. I can tell you we fixed that in a heartbeat. That team room ended up as a glorious mess of tries and errors and solution. It was a good experience. We had many and long, but always good discussions, where we often had a clear idea of how something should be solved. Henrik and the team from Entity Data always pushed us on the solution we chose, because we came from the old way and needed to learn the new way, the SAP way to do it. Our first plant, Marvik, had some issues when we started. I'm not gonna lie, it was a hard time. But the one thing that really stood out is that when we became clear that we all had an issue, everybody, and I mean everybody, stepped up and gave everything to make this work. From entity staff, architects, us, the team members, the people at the plant, we worked so hard, and at that point, we truly were a team. And that was fun to see. It was no longer a customer kind of deal. We were now one team. And that was really nice to see. And another good moment, another moment I'm grateful to have been a part of was when SAP came to look at our solution in our headquarters at Learn. To see Henrik in his right element was really fun to watch. And SAP joined us on one of the go lives too, in Tønsberg, one of our biggest factories. And I think they liked our solution. Didn't they, Henrik? We had a good time.
Yes, yeah. It was a good, very good cooperation with SAP at that time. Yes.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
So this is what it was. We started out as a customer with a customer kind of relationship, and we ended up more like colleagues and a true team. And this was really nice to be a part of. And thank you for that, Henrik. You made this good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any more questions?
I think it's really impressive what you achieved. I mean, both Nortura and of course Henrik and his team, rolling out to 14 warehouses in 3 years is an achievement, and setting up 2 solutions, a complex one and a simple one, is also something that is quite remarkable. I don't know if there are questions or if André, you want to take over already.
Yep, I'm fine. Oh yeah, I just want to reiterate what Anne said. It's really nice, a really nice story, and I am impressed to see this change going through the 14 sites, and how EWM. I'm very proud of EWM and what you have achieved with this solution, because seeing this solution, let's say, live up and running and support different businesses, really basically the end of the story of from SAP we deliver solution, but then see the solution supporting the business is definitely our goal. Okay. And well, if you don't have question, or if you want to put any question, you can use the chat as well. Okay. And so, well, I will take this time to go through to add some elements to the great presentation of Nortura. Basically, what we saw today is an implementation of a customer, a really successful story. So what I would like to do is to give you more highlights about the solution that Nortura used for their journey, that is called, as you understand, is extended warehouse management. Okay. And I would like to give you some highlights about the investment of SAP in this solution, and how SAP is developing this solution to meet customer requirements, like Nortura requirements, for example, but also requirements coming from many different customers or belonging to many different industries. One thing I noticed is basically the change of the warehousing process. So if you think 15, 20 years ago, the warehouse was just a place where you were used to stock material, and that's it. Today, warehouse became key elements to drive the strategy to the customer of every company. So Nortura preparing the different, let's say, the different orders for the different retailers, customer or other customer according to the requirements, makes the warehouse the center of delivery a specific customer requirements to a specific order. From the labeling, from the weight, for whatever they are needed, the warehouse became the center to deliver what the customer wants. And we see more in general this trend more and more to every customer. So warehouse is not anymore the ugly place where they store stock, but becomes the center to the customer service. So it becomes the where you can really fulfill the customer requirements, and this can be done thanks to the technology you can use in the warehouse. So Annette mentioned the weight station, for example, but there are so many technologies today that are empowering the way to running the business in the warehouse. So we are talking about pick by light, pick to voice, radio frequency, of course, but also we have automation, every kind of automation, automated guided vehicles, also robots is the latest automation. I will spend a little bit more about robots later on. So the technologies are supporting new way of running the warehousing operations, and warehouse became really a fantastic machine to deliver the customer promises. With that said, I would like to spend a few minutes around extended warehouse management. So it is a solution that was launched on the market in 2005. So few years, let's say more than 15 years ago. Okay, and it was it's important to say it was a solution designed from scratch, so it's not an evolution of an ERP. It was a best-of-breed solution designed from scratch to deliver to our customer best-of-breed functionalities. So in terms of functionalities, I don't want to go in the details, but there are really all the typical processes that into the warehouse that every kind of customer is requiring for the best-of-breed application. Another good value of the solution is the integration. So we saw in the path, in the roadmap of Nortura, that they connect with the ECC, the old ERP from SAP. They think about S/4HANA. So we have customers that connect the solution with also non-SAP systems. So the solution can be really connected as a standalone solution to run the warehousing operation, whatever kind of order management system or ERP system you have in the backend. But of course, with SAP in the backend, you leverage the native integration that is there. In terms of another factor or general characteristic of EWM is the deployment options you have. So either you have S/4HANA, either you have SAP ECC, the old ERP R3 solution, either you have third-party system, you have different kind of deployment option, either on-premise or in cloud. So there are all the kind of option you can require, and SAP offer all these options to follow your let's say IT roadmap of system and evolution of system. And then the technology is embedded in the solution is another key pillar of extended warehouse management. So to keep the story short, the solution is designed to fulfill the customer requirement, to accelerate the fulfillment of the processes, to deliver better the shipment to the customers, to introduce or use automation, at the same time to have a lot of flexibility into the warehouse, and end of the day to increase the service to the final customer. Once single standard solution. So Eric mentioned that they had the different complexities, different volumes, different markets, different requirements. So the solution comes as a standard with the possibility to support any kind of customer, markets, and requirement. This is how it has been designed since the beginning, to let the company introduce the standardization, but at the same time, the flexibility to deploy templates in order to find, for example, simple warehouse supported with just a rollout of the simple templates. But we have customers also using the solution to run high complexity, high volume, high automation distribution center. Same solution, same softwares, able to support a different kind of environment. And if we want to mention the environment, we have different kind of warehouse. We saw already in some of them in Henrik and Annette presentation. So we saw production warehouses, for example, when you have the connection with the production supply, the tight integration with the production supply. We have customers running EWM to support distribution centers where you have high volume, high automation. When you need to perform, for example, to find right place for the material in the stock according to the rotation. So, I mean, slow-moving items normally stored very hidden in the warehouse because you are going to pick them once a week, once a month. And fast-moving items very close to the entrance, very close to the exit, because you are going to pick them several times in a day. This kind of best practice are standard and are part of the EWM processes. Also, we have in other industries, customer like automotive industries using EWM to support service parts warehouse, where you have a lot of complexity, a lot of weight, shapes. You need to find the right, let's say, the right position for the right shape. I think automotive, for example, and where you have a lot of volatility. Imagine in the automotive, normally you have a marketing campaign where the demand is of the full year is concentrated in 2 weeks. So you have materials that became fast moving for just 2 weeks. Then you have to replace the material in another position of the warehouse. So this kind of complexity are all managed in the standard extended warehouse management. And then the cross-docking or trusted warehouse, as mentioned already by Nortura. Another point I would like to mention is the standard capabilities that are embedded in the solution. So the solution comes with all the different industry specific requirements embedded. What does this mean? So if you are interested, for example, like Nortura, to manage the catch weight, you have the process embedded and you activate and you run the process. But if you are not interested in the catch weight management, you just leave it without activating it. And this is the same for all the processes. So the software comes with all the industry specific function already embedded. And then during the implementation, you decide which one is applicable for your business process and which one not, and you activate and you use it according to the needs. Again, this allows you to have a crisp and very clean standard implementation. Why I'm mentioning standard? Because well, it's a little bit softer, but the standardization allows you to upgrade the version of the extended warehouse management when a new version is coming. This is a really, let's say, quite new concept. So basically, SAP is delivering every year a new release that is bringing new functionalities to the customers. Okay, a customer that has a standard implementation can decide to upgrade his software version to the next release and taking all the new functionalities embedded in the new release. It is like when you have an upgrade in the iPhone, you get always the latest stuff into the iPhone, and this can be done as well in extended warehouse management by just getting an upgrade path and the latest functionalities delivered with the next release. And in terms of process coverage, we follow. You saw already Nortura that went through the different inbound storage and operation and outbound processing. Generally speaking, the solution covers all these 3 main key processes into the warehouse. The inbound processing, when you receive the material from the supplier, you want to basically inspect. You might want to inspect the material and put away the material or cross-dock the material directly to be loaded on the truck, depending from the process you would like to run into the warehouse. You have some storage and operations, internal operation. Nortura mentioned the physical inventory. There is the possibility, for example, to perform some slotting. So ABC classification, decide what is the right position of the material based on the rotation of the material. rearrangement, reposition the material in the best position of the warehouse. You have value-added services, for example, labeling, packaging, repackaging, kitting. You have all the value-added services that allows you to craft the order according to the customer specification. So you can run really workstations into the warehouse with assembly or sub-assembly of operations in order to satisfy the customer requirements. And then the outbound processing, when you pick, pack, and stage the material that is loaded to the truck to be delivered to the final destination. This is high level, very high level, the process flow of extended warehouse management. I mentioned before the optimization. So the standard solution comes with a lot of best practices used by a lot of companies to optimize the process flow into the warehouse. So, for example, well, you have I mentioned the slotting, for example, to identify the position of the material according to the rotation. You have the object warehouse order that allows you to basically to design the warehouse flow as according to your need, independently from the order that is generating the need of moving the material. You can perform some cartonization or pallet planning. Basically, when you have a box, if you fulfill the box, you need less space on the truck. So this brings optimization, for example. Or you want to basically define how to build a pallet with stackability rules, for example. Or you have a really powerful wave management to manage the wave in the warehouse, to manage the different resources you have in the warehouse, and of course all the rules of stock consolidation and deconsolidation in inbound and in outbound. So all these kind of practices are part of the standard extended warehouse management. Another point I would like to mention is the integration with the production. So we saw Nortura that is using the integration with the production. There are some processes that are prepared to work together with the production, where you are basically working with work center or manufacturing execution system when you are receiving semi-finished or let's say, or finished product from the production, or when you need the full integration with the manufacturing execution system. Another area where we have specific requirements addressed is the direction of preparing the order for the customer, in particularly with the retail, some retail aspects. For example, customer returns. Okay, it's not the case of the food. I don't think it's the case. But imagine the customer returns is a key requirements according to the e-commerce sales. Okay, all the companies that are doing e-commerce, they are supposed to run a strong and robust return management. Okay, if you sell online, you have to be able to receive the returns from your customers that are not satisfied. So in this sense, SAP Extended Warehouse Management contain a process for return management. Also processes to support the picking of different orders on a specific cart that is moving with the picker, or specific requirements in the packing on the packing area for the deliveries to the customers. Another area mentioned by Enric and Annette is the integration with the automation. So automation is changing completely the warehousing operations. Extended Warehouse Management contains a material flow system embedded in the standard code that is able to drive directly the automation and the connection with all the device into the warehouse. So you can have, for example, automatic warehouse. So think about a big automatic storage and retrieval system. So, or multi-deep storage system, or conveyor, for example. But you might want to have integration with the device, all kind of device you need to perform the task into the warehouse, either handheld device or voice picking device or augmented reality device you might find useful to run into the warehouse. And the last innovation and the last integration is introducing the usage of the robots. So robots is looks like science fiction, but it's really something that allow to use the automation without investing a huge amount of money, because the big automatic storage and retrieval are really big investments. So you need the business case to invest in big automation. Robots on the market are available and supporting the picking process. The picker are flexible, available, and they cost much less than a big storage automatic system. So the robots open basically the usage of automation for the mid-market. When you have operations and you want to introduce automation, you can use robots. And extended warehouse management can drive robots directly to support the pickers in his task into the warehouse. It's a new innovation introduced recently by SAP. To complement extended warehouse management, there are other solutions that are supporting the operations. Yard logistics to manage the flow just outside the facility, between the doors and the gate of the facility. So it is a very, very interesting solution, basically where the trucks can book an appointment. Your supplier, your customer can book an appointment and send a truck that is checked in, sent to a parking slot, and has a specific appointment scheduling to load and unload at the door. Okay, Yard Logistics is addressing all the flow between the doors and the gate of the facility. And Warehouse Insight is another solution, is basically an advanced planning engine in cloud to plug in on top of extended warehouse management that analyze how you are performing the warehouse task to identify the empty move into the warehouse. So if you think if you have 2,000 tasks performed every day, 3,000 tasks performed every day, the solution analyzes the moves of the picker into the warehouse and through the heat map can identify the area where the picker is moving. The picker is moving without moving anything. Okay, and the solution drives, thanks to algorithm, thanks to machine learning tools, find opportunities to suggest way of doing the picking in order to decrease the empty move of the pickers. End of the day, to increase the efficiency and the number of lines you can perform every day with a warehouse. And this is another solution that complements extended warehouse management, fully integrated, work with EWM, and drive new incremental optimization on top. Talking about customer running warehouse. We just listened Nortura, that is a great story. We have actually today's more than 2,000 customers like Nortura that are running extended warehouse management for their operations. For many thousands of facilities, from high complexity, high volume facility to very, very simple transit warehouses. Those customers are using, are belonging to different industries, are using automation. Some of them are using automations, are belonging to industry like consumer products, retail industries, industrial machinery and component, automotive, logistics service provider. We have basically a lot of customers running EWM for their industry. So if you are interested, we can go deeper in these customer stories. In terms of benefits, what extended warehouse management brings to our customer? We mentioned the process standardization. So standardization is very important and is key. At the end, they introduce efficiency, so reduce at the end the inventory and the labor cost into the warehouse. Brings the basically in a world where warehousing is key to deliver customer promises, increase the customer satisfaction. So thanks to the flexibility, thanks to the value-added services, you can really customize for each customer his specific order. Increase the stock transparency, visibility at a single process, a single material, whether it is stocked, and possibility to use this information to pick according to, for example, to a serial number. You can drive picking strategies according to serial number or according to the weight, according to expiration date. So all the information you have are relevant to drive strategies into the warehouse. It is as well very flexible and drive basically at the end the possibility to free some space thanks to the optimization best practice that are embedded in the standard. And this is a story that is not only told by SAP benchmark, but also by the customer. So we just heard Nortura, but there are many more customers like Selling Group, for example, the former Dance supermarket that is using widely in the Nordics for their distribution center. More than 30 distribution centers in the Nordics are running extended warehouse management to support Selling Group. We have other group in other companies in other industry, like Hale & Home in China, for example, that improved the warehouse efficiency by 60%. Hasbrook Automotive that introduce EWM and get a lot of savings. Complete group that is driving a lot of automation, for example, in their facility, and many more. So EWM brings value to the customer. And if we want to widen a little bit the scope, I mentioned before yard logistics and warehouse inside, but there are also other solutions that are part of the logistics platform of SAP. And the other solution that is the first step to complement extended warehouse management is the transportation management solution called SAP Transportation Management. A lot of customers are running both solutions. They start from EWM and they move to TM to expand the scope, or they start from transportation management and they move to extended warehouse management to extend the scope. This represents what the analysts call the supply chain execution convergence. So having one single platform to run the end-to-end logistics execution of the group, of the company. There are other solutions that are driving basically the order promising process, for example, to give to the customer the exact day while you are placing the order. Logistic business network to increase visibility, to collaborate better with the suppliers, with the service provider, for example. And then yard logistics, warehouse management that are part of today's presentation. So this represents the digital logistics platform that is integrated with S/4HANA, is integrated with SAP backend system, ECC, and can be integrated also with third-party systems. There are customers running some of those solutions integrated with non-SAP systems. And so EWM, Extended Warehouse Management, is part of this platform. So if you are willing to discover more, in the presentation that will be delivered to you, I will give you more additional information. One information very interesting is the roadmap. Okay, Roadmap, I mentioned before, SAP every year is collecting the requirements from all customers and is evolving the solution. So every year there is a new release coming, delivering new processes, new functionalities that upgrade continuously the level and the capability of the solution. For example, one of the latest upgrade brought the integration with the robots that 10 years ago was even not existing or was not part of the scope. Okay, so every year there is new features according to the technology, according to the requirements of our customer. Those new functionalities are published on the roadmap, SAP roadmap. There is a link. You can see exactly what will be delivered this year and what is planned to be delivered next year. This helps you to understand when it is the right moment to upgrade your system or when it is the right moment to step into the extended warehouse management world. In addition to that, I leave you also some links to discover more about the solution. There are a lot of there is a lot of material all around. Also, entity data can give you a lot of highlights about the solution. Here, I give you some links to discover more about processes, about more customers that went through a warehouse transformation thanks to extended warehouse management. And with that said, I leave you for question. Otherwise, I hand over to Hans. If there are any questions, please ask.
Yes, I think we actually had a question for the previous part. But okay. Well, you can keep any questions slide. Maybe the question from Ton here would be how are you using Neptune versus Fiori? Do you still have some Fiori interfaces? And also, I think what you mean by how do you manage dynamic queuing Neptune, RF transaction? How real time is Neptune connected to EWM? So is it like a middleware where you send tasks to this middleware, or is it really real time and you see the updates live? Is that the question?
Well, okay, the first question, okay, just to give you a Fiori is part of the...
I think the question was for Nortura and how Nortura is handling this. Sorry. I don't know, Annette or Henrik, who can...
Yeah, first of all, as Nortura choose Neptune software as a strategic platform for developing shop floor systems. But we are using Fiori apps also. I think at the solution we have at the Nortura at the moment, it's primarily HR using Fiori apps. But I assume that later on for the S4HANA that there will be a lot more use of Fiori apps. And if you talk about the Neptune, then it's directly connected into EWM. So it's like embedded in EWM, having some function models calling directly to the processors and to the methods and function models that are operating directly on EWM. So there's no delay; it's directly integrated in EWM. That does also mean that we are. I think we. I can't remember if we had an offline scenario, but we didn't establish any offline scenarios. We only have online scenarios. Yes. Sorry, was that the question or?
No, it answers a couple of questions, yes. Because we are also in the middle of an EWM rollout, and we added Neptune for two reasons. One was offline functionalities, and the second was a better UX UI. And that's what you mentioned in your introduction, that the UX UI is much better than with Fiori. And mainly when I look at the RF transactions, they are really horrible on Fiori to be used as a UX UI. And with Neptune, you can really make it very nicely. All the fields, you can choose the fields, you can really display them nicely. But it's a huge work. So I was wondering, did you also do the RF transactions? Did you redo them in Neptune, or are you only using are you doing the normal tiles, let's say?
Yeah, we didn't do the RF transaction. We investigated if in the beginning of the project if they could be used. So I think we decided that we will only use Neptune in all applications. And at that time, I'm not sure if it's like that anymore. But at that time, there was no like standard tile delivered from Neptune to EWM. So we made everything. We made the front end by using first of all some mock-ups and then continuous improvement. And we did also all the back end work to connect to the right areas in EWM, having the right data displayed, having the right data validated and confirmed back to EWM. So I'm not sure if that is delivered now by Neptune more a standard deliverable to it. No, we did it. Okay.
No. Unfortunately not, and that's also my problem that I have with Neptune, and I'm and currently, so we are considering to go back to Fiori because of otherwise it's just too much work to redevelop, and mainly because we want to use the RF transactions because that's where we have the queue management. Because how do you deal with the queue management if you don't use the RF transactions?
Yes, but we actually not using real like queue management like in RF. It's maybe it was a little bit visible on some of the screens from that Annette showed that we have queues that we are placing orders in, and then different people in different areas will have access to different orders. But the people themselves can choose which order they should choose within the queue. So I think Annette, you showed one of the screens, right, where it was displayed some orders, and the operator could go in and select what order he wants to. So
Yes.
it's it's only semi-guided. It's not system guided totally. But it's connected to another things because we are releasing waves to the warehouse. So we know that the entire wave should be finished. So the operator has a freedom to choose some different orders, but at the end he should take them all, right?
Yes, in the end they should be processed. That's true.
We need to go system guided because we start with operators, but in a few months we want to replace, or not replace, we want to change to AGVs. So the system has to be fully controlling the system.
Yeah, of course, yes, yeah. But as we have the many different principles, and for the PDA, for the handheld devices, we are using that for normal man to goods and optimal picking path, and he will pick up to a pick HU. But I think the main volume actually in some of the where we are talking about fresh food, because we also have frozen food, what's a little bit different. But fresh food, it's really not have to stay in the warehouse, right? Because it's fresh, we have to get to the customer quickly. So I think the majority, the main volume is actually done in the pick stations, right? Where we have, as I mentioned, Annette, we have some pre-picked, and then we have for really volume products. And in this case, we have like organized the warehouse. So all these products are standing around him. So and then the pick station will show him the priority of the orders. So in this case, we also avoid kind of the queue management. But of course, as you say, if you more automation you have, you will need the system guided functionalities in the system, right? Annette, do you have anything to?
No, you're good at this. So now it's like you said, we have goods to man and man to goods. We have both solution depending on what's the most efficient in that warehouse for that season or whatever. So it varies. So we have everything.
Okay. Do we have any questions on Andreas' presentation on EWM?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, then maybe I will take it over.
Yes.
And give you a quick. Wait, I just want to keep Teams to continue to see your faces. Yes. So, well, many thanks, Andrea, for this presentation also. And one thing I wanted to highlight here is you might have known us before under the brand Intelligence. Henrik, you still have around your neck the iTelligence
Sorry,
logo.
you're right. Yeah.
But I don't think we have the blue ones. I don't have a blue one yet, so that's okay. And Annette, congratulations, because you said entity data without hesitating, without saying iTelligence. I still have issues changing our name. So I did want to touch a quick word on this and introduce ourselves, because there might be some persons on this call who do not know us. So we underwent a transformation a couple of weeks ago now from iTelligence to entity data. There's a saying in French saying it changes nothing and it changes everything at a time. It changes nothing in the sense that we remain within the entity data group, an independent company, focusing 100% on implementing SAP solution. But it makes our life easier, and it changes something in the way we collaborate within the entity data group, in the sense that we now all operate under the same brand. So on the other side of the world, for example, compared to Norway, we have operations in Brazil. And when you talk about supply chain, Brazil is always a very complicated, highly regulated environment. In Brazil, we operated under the brand FH, which is a company we acquired a couple of months ago. Of course, this makes it all much easier now. Everybody's running under the same name, and it's more transparent and easy for you to understand with whom you work. No, sorry. Oh, you don't see my screen. No, you don't see my screen. Okay, so now you see my screen. Perfect.
Now, yes.
Now you see my screen.
Yeah.
So before we had a red logo, now it's blue, so that's why we have this transition, and that's why I have it behind me too. That's part of our transformation. The entity data business solution, as we are called now, or entity data, our iTelligence part of it, has 30 years of experience on implementing SAP solution, which means that we are conducting more than 30,000 projects a year, projects or trainings or expertises on consulting. And we've implemented over 460, and I think it's now 520 actually, SAP S/4HANA projects. Some of those are live. We were among the first companies or the first implementation partners to really implement S/4HANA projects. In the first year of S/4HANA, we had 10% of all the S4 implementations that were running under the entity data or iTelligence brand at that time. So those figures are really focusing on what used to be iTelligence. Behind those figures, we have about 10,000 consultants or experts working on SAP. Now that we are part of entity data under the same brand, although entity data owned iTelligence for 13 years before we did the name change, it allows us to position us as one of the top 10 or top 8 IT service providers amongst the big players that maybe some of the market might be more familiar with. So we now have an easy access to this 130,000 experts, which we can call on if we have issues outside the SAP world, around cybersecurity, around IoT, around many other topics. One other great thing of the entity data group is the amount of money they spend in R&D, $6 billion a year. We at entity data benefit from that R&D spending. We do not get the $6 billion, but we get a small part of it to do co-innovation with you and on our projects. So typically when Andrea mentioned robots, mentioned fancy ways to interact with the system, we have already conducted with some of our customers co-innovation projects, proof of concepts around how to implement new processes in the warehouse. We did a couple of years ago a Google Glass prototype that was supported by our colleagues in Japan with some funding. Now the technology has not picked up yet, but it's really one of the key assets of our entity data group. It's the effort we put in R&D. A quick word on entity data's digital supply chain. We basically, as we are 100% ACP focused company, we operate on digital supply chain a bit in the same way that SAP does. So we also accompany our customers in this design to operate a wheel, and we have built our skills and the way we enable our consultants around this wheel. We just changed it a bit. We did try to put customer experience in the center. Annette, you said in your slides that EWM helped you to raise the quality of how you delivered goods and how you delivered your customers. So we also have a team of consultants working around customer experience. So we try to have some synergies between our colleagues from customer experience and our supply chain projects. And well, you briefly touched it also, Andrea. EWM is part of a larger suite of products that goes from design to operate. There is transportation management, there is PLM, there is some manufacturing assets, there is this network part. So this at Entity Data now represents about 250 experts, over 200 projects delivered with some of our lighthouse customers. If I take a couple, Module is one of our IBP customers, so where we do, well, sales and operations planning and some other processes. We have the French Postal Services and Agro Mousquetaire, which are customers where we've implemented transportation management. Lensing, which is a customer where we were more working on the digital manufacturing side, implementing some fancy solutions. Part of those R&D funds went into a solution to Lensing is processing wood. So when we have a truck full of how do you call them? Well, trees that have been cut down, that is coming into the factories. We take a picture of this and we do the good receipt based on the quality that we recognize from the picture. Selling Group is another customer that you mentioned, Andrea, so I won't go back to that. It's again one of the achievements of Henrik. So one of his big customers. Danone is a customer that I actually worked on a lot. It's a customer in France in the dairy business, which you might be familiar with. And here we also had a very aggressive rollout strategy, a bit like you at Nortura. It's also fresh food, fresh product. Your goods live for 30 days, so you have to get them out of the market very quickly. So here we rolled out this solution into 8 warehouses very quickly. If I take a quick look into EWM and our skills at Intelligence, I think, Annette, you mentioned it also that we worked, or Henrik, I don't remember, sorry. But as you said, it's one team. We worked a lot on the best practices. This is one of the ways we accelerate our projects, and we try to stick to the standard as much as possible. It safeguards the quality of the implementation. It also allows you as a customer to upgrade more frequently. Andrea showed the roadmaps and the frequent evolution. It's really a change in the way that we do projects to try to stick to the standard, fine-tune the solution by working in the spaces that SAP has provided us to work in, like the bodies, which is a technical concept. I wouldn't go into the details today, but we have doors to adapt the solution so that we can take the best of the best practices and fine-tune the solution to your requirements. This is a key element for you to be able to upgrade very quickly. A typical change on the roadmap that SAP delivered recently is a way to do milk runs in factory when you have Kanban when you have Kanban replenishments to do. This is one of the feedbacks that we gave to SAP after a couple of projects where we had to do this in a bespoke mode. Now SAP has delivered a new functionality in the latest or the last year's release, and this of course makes our life much easier if we can upgrade our customer solution to adapt those standard processes very quickly. This experience that our 75 expert gained and the experience they've gained also on implementing best practices is something that started quite a long time ago. Henrik and I think we were both working for companies that were acquired by Intelligence in 2006, but we were already working on EWM since the very first releases of EWM, of the 5.0 release. And I think that's also one way we safeguard the quality of our projects. It's by the knowledge we've gained over those past years, implementing EWM in all possible cases and industries and types of warehouses. I've said it before, so a couple of exchanges of innovation, a couple of examples of innovation. We are working, especially in the life science and the vaccine industry, as it's not a trendy topic, but it's a very up-to-date topic on how to track a cold chain and how to monitor all the cold chain. We've done a couple of projects around this. We're trying to enhance the user interfaces. I think that the skills that we built up around Neptune, and of course, I think we gained a lot of knowledge in the Nortura project. I know that we were also working on Neptune before, but it's one of the key things we do. It's to make sure that the solutions we implement are adopted and are accepted by the end users. In the warehousing environment, it's also always a very critical topic. The solutions have to be easy to use. If you have interim workers, they should not have 2 weeks of training before they can scan a pallet and ship it. And there's a high expectation from the end users to have something as user-friendly as their favorite app on their phone. So this is also a new trend that we might not have had a couple of years ago, where we were saying, okay, in the warehouse we can have an industrial-looking solution. Now we need to have a nice-looking solution. We are working also, as Andrea mentioned it, a lot with robots, but also with cobots. So how we can interact with how a human can interact with a robot. There are some solutions around fetching robots and some other tools which really accelerate the way we interact in a warehouse. Some of the other things we've also innovated on are narrow bandwidth networks. Those are like the very low powered networks that allow us to build up IoT scenarios in the warehouse. This can be again for temperature tracking or for any kind of tracking where we need to rely on networks that are not Wi-Fi compliant. So quite a lot of innovation on our side, and a very innovative team working on our extended warehouse management solutions. Maybe a quick word on some of the assets we've built over time. Henrik, you had one slide that showed all the options that a customer now has around EWM embedded, EWM standalone, EWM 9.5. It's not really an option anymore, but there are many different options a customer now has when he has to ask himself, which solution am I going to implement? So we've built some accelerators, we've built some tools around this to help us decide which is the best solution for you when we stand in front of a new project. So we'd be very happy to discuss this. And yes, we are also very happy as SAP has certified some of the solutions that we've developed and has recognized our experience also by certifying and qualifying some of our consultants. A quick word on the references. I think I discussed some of those already. We will distribute those slides, and maybe I will leave you with a video that you can look at when you'll get these slides. So one video about Krone, a spare parts company in Germany, and then a video on how we implemented sorry, I was using a technical term, MFS, but automatic warehouses in Spain for a customer with conveyor belts, with pick-to-lights, with some fancy automation equipment. Those would be the couple of words I wanted to say to present entity data and what we've done on EWM and how we can support you on your projects. So I don't know if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Or we can win 20 minutes on the planned schedule. Okay, maybe we can stop the recording. Maybe that's making people shy. I'll stop the recording.